Welcome back to the Tuesday Weekend, the podcast that made extra just in case you showed up with a few more friends. So, a couple of stories of celebrations that we have had that were just the joys to share, the problem solving on the spot that, really came together. And one of my favorite stories from all of my times in banquets. Wow. Oh, geez, that made me think of the weekend where I had 3 weddings, one on Friday, one on Saturday, and one on Sunday. But I'll save that story for a different time. But there was a wedding party we had on a Saturday that the advanced people started coming in about 3:00. And so about 3:15, 3:30, the DJ shows up and great. Okay, this is the spot that we've set aside by the dance floor for you to set up. If you need anything, chairs, tables, whatever, let me know. And we had a conversation, like multiple sentences passed back and forth between us. Dude seemed fine. And then we get to about 5:30, and that's when the family showed up before kind of the whole crush of the crowd came.
Yeah, the pre-date.
Now, the DJ had basically set up a little booth, and what I didn't notice is he was basically slumped over his laptop. The best the bartenders and I put together is we think after he set up his equipment, went out to the bar on the floor, and there was probably a pill or two involved and took a couple of shots, but he couldn't communicate a full sentence. He was so messed up. Like his eyes were unfocused. He just somehow in that hour and a half, he went from being able to maintain a conversation to too smashed to operate his own equipment. So of course, the brother of the bride comes to me and says, "Is there anyone you know that could come DJ this for us?" And I got on there and I actually got some house music going just over my regular AV system. And yes, actually, there are a couple of DJs in town, party DJs that I could call on last minute, and one of them showed up and saved the day. But I have never, not only did the DJ not get paid, but this is a pretty small town and reputations go a long way. So yeah, a note to the party DJs out there. Yeah, you should have a good time too, but oh boy, you need to be able to hit play on that next track.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of DJs I know who do that. That's all they do. They just hit play and then they scroll through their emails, read articles.
Yeah, exactly. Check their Facebook. Exactly.
And I've talked to him. They're like, and the songs he's like, I've got all the songs on here that people request.
Yep.
So it's like, hey, I'll get to that in a few minutes, but I promise you I'm going to play it tonight. It's just on their playlist and it's going to come up in 6 songs. It's like, they're playing my song. It's like, yeah, your song is like, one of the top 25 songs in the world right now. So it's just on there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not with the professional side. Again, lots of Christmas parties, lots of weddings in San Diego. We do weddings year round here, literally. People show up to get married on a Tuesday in December in San Diego with their whole families. It's pretty bizarre. So I'm working out in Coronado. We're doing a rehearsal dinner. We do a ton of those that we did out at that place. And the groom's a little tipsy when they get there. I'm always watching. All bartenders are. And when you have a large group, especially at a banquet, you're flagging your trouble and then you're talking to the rest of the staff like, hey, keep an eye on this guy, keep an eye on this woman, keep an eye.
Absolutely.
I'm like, they're looking like they're a little shaky right now. So like slow down their drink service. There's a lot of stuff we can do to alleviate that problem.
As a banquet manager, I was in constant communication with my bartender about both what I was seeing and what they were seeing.
Yeah.
Especially in those bigger parties when there are older minors around.
Yes, exactly. So the groom's up there and he's having cocktails and we get into a little conundrum because he's not ordering his own drinks for the most part. The best man is, his buddy is, his cousin is, his friend from second grade in high school is bringing him drinks. And I'm watching and I'm like, okay, so he's drinking pretty heavy at this point. And I point that out. I'm like, hey, anyone orders next to the groom orders him a drink, let me know. He's getting soda for the rest of the night. He's pretty much done.
Mm-hmm.
So they do the rehearsal dinner, they all eat, and then it is time for the speeches. The speeches are always great in these things. I mean, I've heard some speeches that have brought tears to my eyes. I have heard speeches that are some of the funniest things any stand-up could do. This speech is the worst speech I have ever heard, ever, in the hundreds of weddings I have done, banquets, shower, whatever. Anytime there's a speech, this one just right there, you've got the gold medal, buddy, you win. So he starts talking about his family in his rehearsal dinner speech. His father went to West Virginia. It was a Thursday night in the fall. West Virginia was playing on ESPN. I had the game on at the request of the family because a lot of them are from West Virginia. The groom goes on to declare that his father is a queer for going to West Virginia, and then drops about 14 F-bombs in the middle of the speech. Remind you, this is again a rehearsal dinner. There are children around, and he is absolutely annihilated. And halfway through the speech, his mother gets up and walks over to the bar where me and the servers are standing behind it, looking like Lee Trevino from Happy Gilmore with just the incredulous shaking of the head. I mean, and I do all these banquets, and the servers get rotated around, and they're like, "Have you?" I'm like, "I've never seen this happen before. No, not once." And the mom comes over, and she's just like, "The bar's closed," and I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." And the server's like, "Well, I'm like, "I've got a drink order," and me and the mom look at the server, and I'm just like, "Bar's closed. Just tell him, sorry, there's no more drinks tonight. There's no more alcohol. Bar's closed." I don't know if the wedding went off the next day, because then he started talking about how his wife would get around with other guys before he met her. I mean, it was a bad speech. I was waiting for anyone to take the microphone away from him, and no one did. It was a train wreck that you watched in slow motion for about 15 minutes. Just like, good God, when this guy wakes up tomorrow, his life is going to be completely changed.
Sure. When I got up to give my speech at my wedding, my older brother shouts out, "Tell a joke." So, why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the idiot's house. Knock, knock. Who's there? The chicken. All right. So, especially in a room where my nephews and niece at that point were all under 10, that made both them and my wife's aunties laugh. So yeah, good joke.
The celebrations like that, there's been so many just mishaps and stuff that we can't fix. When you start giving a speech and you go off the rails, that's all you. When you decide to plan the party and think that, oh, well, they have these souvenir cups and they're only a $2 difference in price, so the cups must just cost $2 instead of asking us when they cost $15, and then throw an absolute fit when you just bought $450 worth of souvenir cups. That's on you.
Well, also, if you are having any sort of AV, anything, get that figured out before the guests show up.
The AV stuff should start not at the start time, but usually an hour before, just so we can get it plugged in, figure out the system.
Even if that means sending someone beforehand to make sure it gets done, that is not what you want to be figuring out when somebody has a microphone in their hand and everyone's eyes are on them. Same with the lighting too.
Lighting, the volume of the background music, because a lot of parties like to bring their own music and they want to hear it, but they don't want to hear it. Like when they plug in, I'm like, so do you want people to be able to understand all the words of these songs? Or you just want it in the background where everyone's chatting? And they're like, oh, we want to hear the music. And I'm like, okay. And
it's going to get loud in here.
10 minutes in, hey, can you turn the music down? I'm like, yep, sure can. Okay, fine. That's back at the level that we thought we wanted it at before this started. And that's another thing too. Listen to the people who are taking care of you, because we're there to take care of you. But it's also not our first rodeo, and we know how a lot of this works.
Right.
And when we say, hey, this is what really works in a lot of the parties is this level, and I always try to throw it back on, hey, we've done this 1,000 times. This is what worked best.
It will be easier if we do it this way.
This will be the easiest way to do this. Never
we
listen.
Can get it done like that, but if we do it like this instead, then that's a better experience for your guests. It's easier for us as a staff to pull off.
There's always the one person in the group's like, well, you know what you could do? And I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what we can do.
Yep.
You guys don't know what I can do. You guys don't know what I can't do. I am telling you what I can do, and there's really no other course on this. Like, you might have some cool Wile E. Coyote put an envelope to fall down somewhere plan that'll make this work, but we're not doing that.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you might want a dance floor, a place for the DJ and a place for the band, and then seating for 270 people, but I'm going to tell you, we don't have space in the ballroom for that.
Yeah, because we don't have space in the ballroom for that.
Just, yeah.
Like
or it's going to be super tight.
We've done the whole, well, we have 90. And I'm like, well, this room comfortably seats 60.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can just put chairs. I'm like, no, we can't. If we put 90 people in here, we can't get the food to the tables because we can't get through the tables.
Those regular 5-foot round tables seat 8 very nicely.
Yes.
They seat 10 kind of tight, and 12
is just right out the window.
I hope everyone's skinny.
I like the gatherings. I like it, but people need to realize that when you have 100 people or so and you want to have them all together dining, it's going to cost you 10 grand just to walk through the door. It's going to cost you 10 grand. If you're a baller on a budget, I mean, maybe you want to do this whole thing with the kitchen down at the Elks Club, or maybe you want to go to like the rec room at your trailer park.
Do
that.
How about have the party at the bowling alley?
I like that idea.
Call them well in advance and,
yes,
rent out several lanes.
Make sure you get several lanes.
Make sure.
And one lane for the kids to just roll balls down. You don't even have to keep score. Just let them keep rolling the balls. That's how I like to bowl.
Yeah.
Like, you want to bowl? And I'm like, nope, I'm going to go play with the kids and just push a ball. I'm like, I got a strike. All I did was this. Yeah, you look good, though. Nice shoes.
To me, bowling is such great, stupid fun, especially for a team. Like if a bunch of coworkers going out to bowl, all right, there's almost always the two that are serious about it. And I'm usually one of those two, like the people that will, maybe even break 130. Whereas everyone else bowls a 62 and they have a good time. But it's not about pressure. It's about stupid fun. So go bowling with your crew. So one other holiday food that we didn't talk about earlier that I do kind of miss is Grandma's array of Christmas cookies, because it would be 6 to 10, depending on how she was feeling, of just different varieties of cookies on that platter.
Doing the Italian thing, we did these things called rosettes, where you take good dough, you cut it, and then you fold it around so it looks like a rose, deep fry them, and then you just cover them with powdered sugar. And I mean, we had a rosette night every year right in the Christmas season to make a whole bunch of them. And believe me, they didn't last till New Year's because everyone was constantly eating them. You have the Christmas party, you'd go through like an entire box of them, like a cardboard box, because people just pick them up and chew on them and stuff. And yeah, Easter was donut holes, where they fry donuts and then pop the holes out. But the holes were the big thing. We'd have a couple of donuts, but a whole lot of donut holes for my family anyway.
In the largely Polish area that my mother grew up in, well, it's kind of half Polish, half German. Punchkis, that is the Lent pastry.
Yep.
And they're great. And really, again, Nevada, not the hugest Polish population up here, so I'm not even sure where I would find a punchki within. Well, I'm sure there's one in Vegas. I'd find one closer if I go to Sacramento or to San Francisco.
Yeah, let us know what your cool holiday thing is that your family does that you always look forward to every year. I mean, just put it in the comments. It'd be great. Because,
of course, Grandma would have apple pies made and usually pull one out of the freezer and serve it with the Breyers vanilla ice cream.
My grandfather and my mom still makes another thing. It's like a round cake, like it's got its own little shell that you make in it. It's a roll cake with like nuts and honey and stuff, and it's called patizza, and you bake that and then slice it. And I love that too. I mean, it's just the sweetness just from the honey and then the nuts and stuff inside, and then it's got a nice crust. But another thing that is only holidays, like you don't see it in June.
Right. There are all sorts of culturally specific holiday foods that we really haven't even, at this point, don't really even have the time to get into. Maybe we should do a show about that in the future. So
just the Christmas Eve dinner for different families and cultures and stuff that you have the same every year.
Absolutely.
I mean, like feast of 7 to 11 fishes, whatever it is for Italians, because it's different from every region.
The same, even within Mexican culture, the northern Mexican foods versus what you would get in Puebla or Mexico City itself.
Yeah.
It's different. It's a different feast.
Oh yeah. Like when I worked at the Mexican restaurant I worked at called Frito Bistro was Mexican food from Mexico City. There was no tortillas on anything. There was no burritos. It was all just gorgeous, sumptuous dishes and very rich and flavorful and stuff you would never think is from that country. And it's just like, it was, people like, this isn't even like Mexican food. And I'm like, well, it is. This is their fine dining.
The one holiday tradition I miss the most from living in Brooklyn is going out for Chinese food on Christmas Day with my Jewish friends, because it's all upsides. There's nothing bad about it.
Absolutely.
And I think on that note, we shall get to our restaurant shout outs now, because last week I made fun of Naperville, and rightfully so. There is much to be made fun about in Naperville, but they also have one of my favorite restaurants, Maison Sabika, which is in fact where Dee and I had our wedding reception in Chicagoland. It's fantastic. It is a Spanish tapas restaurant in a historic mansion. And again, like I said, they have a separate event space on the property. Both of them are great. What was beautiful for our wedding reception was the pitchers of sangria that we had paid for at the bar for all of our friends, because I'm not going to invite somebody to a big major party and then have a cash bar for them. That's going to be a hosted bar. And those pitchers of sangria were a hit. So Maison Sabika, if you're in the Naperville area or in the Chicagoland area, go make a reservation. Go check it out.
I'm going to give a shout out to, and I'm pretty sure it's not there anymore, but Stan's Metro Deli in lovely Tempe, Arizona, where I attended college. Stan's was pretty much like any of the big delis that are known back east. They were from back east. They did everything right. The bread was right. The pastrami was fantastic. The corned beef hash was just extravagant. I mean, I would go in and get that triple-decker pastrami Reuben with a side of cheese fries. And then actually one time had the server ask me, like, can you finish all this? And this is back in my 20s. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. She's like, because the kitchen is betting me that you can't finish this entire dish. And I'm like, I want in on that. Like, here's my 20, put me down to finish. But the food there was fantastic. On one of my birthdays, we were there and they had a bar, but really not a bartender since it was a deli. And they had a bar because it was in Tempe at Arizona State. And we were bartenders, and my friend convinced them to let him pour our drinks instead of the bartender because she didn't really know how to make drinks. So he made us all like pint glass gin and tonic, stuff like that. One of those, but the food there was just fantastic. I mean, they had the pickles, when they come out with like the 9 different types of pickles just for just to have to snack on while you're waiting for your food. I just absolutely love the place. I hope it's still there. I haven't been back down to Mill in a little bit to see if it's still there or not, but I've heard a lot of changeover. But if you can find a good deli like that, a good solid deli, you can't beat. And I mean, I know everyone's probably got one, and I hope everyone has one. So you know what a really good sandwich is like, and you know what a really good deli goes for.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to wrap it up for this week, though I do want to let everybody know we have started a Buy Me a Coffee account. If you want to buy us a coffee, give us some tips. If you want to show us some love, I will include the link to the Buy Me a Coffee below. Otherwise, I am Josh Hobson. My co-host is Nick Parkin. Our music was made by Andrew Smith, and Deneen Oliver does our social media. We are going to have one more show next week, and then we will take the next couple of weeks after that off and be back in January. So come back next week.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays.